The ties that bind a family's hidden truths, Reddit stories. Backstory: in the quiet suburb of Oakridge, nestled among rows of neatly trimmed houses and towering oak trees, the Mitchell family had always been seen as the perfect picture of suburban bliss. To their neighbors, they appeared as a model family: a successful father, a warm and loving mother, and two charming children, Lily and Ben. But beneath this facade of harmony and happiness lay secrets, unspoken truths that no one dared to address, not even within the walls of their own home. The Mitchells had always prided themselves on their privacy, their ability to keep their personal struggles hidden from the outside world. But as the years passed, cracks began to appear in their perfect image. The story that follows explores the complexities of family dynamics, the secrets we keep to protect those we love, and the moment when those secrets can no longer remain buried. The Mitchell family had always been known for their ability to weather storms together. Their friends admired the way they seemed to never falter, even in the face of adversity. Jack Mitchell, the patriarch of the family, was a successful lawyer who always seemed to have everything under control. His wife, Emma, was the glue that held the family together, a woman who ran a tight ship at home and always made sure everyone was taken care of. Lily and Ben, their children, were well-adjusted, bright, and well-behaved. They fit the mold of the ideal American family. But there was one thing no one knew, not even the closest friends of the Mitchells. They were hiding a truth that would shake the very foundation of their lives. It started with a single moment, an innocuous slip of the tongue that went unnoticed, yet would set off a chain of events that would unravel everything they had built. It was on a warm spring evening when the first crack appeared. Jack had invited a few colleagues over for a barbecue in the backyard, as he often did. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden hue across the yard, and the smell of sizzling steaks and burgers filled the air. The children were playing in the pool, and Emma was busy tending to the guests, making sure everyone had a drink in hand and that the conversation flowed smoothly. Lily, who was 16 at the time, had always been a bit more independent than most children her age. She would often sneak away from family gatherings to spend time with her friends or simply to have a quiet moment alone. But on that particular evening, she found herself standing beside her father at the grill, a look of confusion etched on her face. "Hey, Dad," Lily said, her voice tinged with hesitation. "Can I ask you something?" Jack, who was busy flipping a burger, glanced over at her with a smile. "Well, of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind?" Lily hesitated, glancing over at her mother, who was deep in conversation with some of the guests. "It's about Mom," she said quietly. "Why does she never talk about her family? I mean, we've never really met any of her relatives. Not even a mention of them. It's like they don't exist." The question hung in the air for a moment, and Jack's smile faltered, his eyes briefly flashing with something Lily couldn't quite place. He cleared his throat and quickly returned his focus to the grill. "Your mom's family. Well, they're complicated. Sweetie, some things are better left in the past." While Lily frowned, sensing that there was more to the story than her father was letting on. "But you never even tell us about them. Why are they so complicated?" Jack's hand froze for a moment, and Lily could see a flicker of tension in his posture. He quickly recovered, though, and with a forced chuckle, he said, "It's just one of those things, kiddo. Some families have their issues, and your mom's family is one of those cases. Let's not worry about it." But Lily wasn't satisfied with that answer. She knew her father too well to believe that everything was as simple as he made it sound. There was something more to the story, something he wasn't telling her. Later that night, when the guests had all left and the house had settled into a quiet calm, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She went to her room, sat on her bed, and stared out the window, lost in thought. Her mind kept returning to the question she had asked her father. Why didn't her mother talk about her family? What had happened to them? She decided to confront her mother the next day. It was time to get some answers. The following afternoon, while Jack was at work and Ben was out with friends, Lily approached Emma in the kitchen. Emma was chopping vegetables for dinner, her movements deliberate and practiced, but she seemed distracted. Lily watched her for a moment, trying to find the right words to start the conversation. "Mom," Lily began softly, "I was talking to Dad last night and I asked him about your family," he said there. Complicated, but he didn't really explain why. I want to know more. Why don't we ever talk about them?" Emma's knife paused mid-chop, and for a brief moment, Lily thought her mother hadn't heard her. But then Emma set the knife down and turned to face her daughter. There was a strange look in her eyes, something that sent a chill down Lily's spine. "Lily," Emma began, her voice steady but tinged with an emotion that was hard to place, "I think it's time I told you some things. Things that I've kept hidden for a long time." Lily's heart raced. She had expected an explanation, but not like this. Her mother's expression was unreadable, her posture stiff, as if she were preparing for something painful. "I never wanted you to know about my past," Emma continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "But the time has come for you to understand. There are things in my family that I wish had never happened. Things that are better left forgotten." Lily felt her stomach tighten. Her mind raced, but she remained silent, waiting for her mother to continue. Emma took a deep breath, then finally spoke the words that would change everything. "My family, they weren't always what they seemed. They were involved in things, dark things, things that I couldn't escape from. When I married your father, I left all of that behind. But it's never truly gone. And now, it's time for you to know the truth." The truth. Lily had never imagined that it would come to this. She had always known there was more to her mother's past, but she never imagined it would be something so sinister. Emma's voice trembled as she continued. "I had to sever ties with them for your sake. I didn't want you growing up around that darkness. I didn't want it following us here. But I see now that I've made a mistake by keeping you in the dark for so long. You deserve to know." Lily's mind was racing. Her mother's words felt like a bombshell exploding in her chest. What had she gotten herself into? And more importantly, what other secrets lay buried in the depths of the Mitchell family? As Emma's voice trailed off, Lily's thoughts began to spiral. There was so much she didn't know, so much that had been hidden from her, from their entire family. And as the days passed, Lily would begin to realize that the Mitchells weren't just a perfect family living in a perfect world. They were a family with a past they could never outrun. Lily sat in stunned silence as her mother's words hung heavy in the air. The kitchen, once a place of warmth and comfort, now felt like a cold, sterile room. Emma had finally cracked open the door to a part of her life that Lily had never known existed. But the question was she ready to walk through it? She looked at her mother, who had turned away, now focused on the vegetables she had been chopping earlier. Her hands were shaking, the knife slipping slightly with each motion. It was as though Emma was trying to regain control, to cling to some semblance of normalcy after revealing something so deeply unsettling. Lily's heart pounded in her chest. The truth her mother had alluded to seemed more and more like a dark web, tangled in the shadows of their family's past. She had always felt there was something just beneath the surface, something hidden, but now she understood that her instincts had been right. There was much more to the Mitchell family than their neatly manicured lawns and happy family gatherings. "Mom," Lily whispered, trying to find her voice. "What exactly are you talking about? What happened in your family? What did they do?" Emma paused, the knife stilling in her hand. She closed her eyes as though summoning the strength to speak. When she opened them again, they were filled with an emotion Lily had never seen before. A mixture of fear, regret, and sorrow. It was a vulnerability her mother rarely showed, especially not to her. "Never wanted you to carry the weight of it, Lily," Emma began, her voice softer now, almost a murmur. But I realize now that you're old enough to understand. My family, they were involved in something terrible, something that I couldn't escape from. They weren't just ordinary people. They had connections, dangerous connections, and they used them for things that no one should ever be part of. And Lily felt a cold shiver run down her spine. The idea that her family had been involved in something criminal, something dark, was too much to process. She thought back to the perfect image of her parents, their impeccable reputation, the stability they projected. How could all of that be built on a lie? Emma continued, her voice trembling now. Your grandparents, my brothers and sisters, they weren't the people you think they were. They were involved in illegal activities, things I had to turn my back on. I had no choice but to walk away. But that didn't mean they let me go easily. They kept their eyes on me, on us. For years, I feared they'd come back and drag us into whatever it was they were doing. Lily swallowed hard, trying to comprehend what her mother was saying. She knew her mother had grown up in a different world, a world far removed from their suburban life. But the details were always vague. Emma had rarely spoken of her childhood, and when she did, it was always in passing, like a bad dream she wanted to forget. But why? Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Why keep it a secret? Why didn't you trust us enough to share it? Emma looked up at her daughter, her eyes filled with an unspoken sadness. I was trying to protect you, Lily. All those years, I thought I could protect you from the horrors of my past. I wanted you to have a normal life, a life where you didn't have to worry about things like that. But it wasn't just about protecting you anymore. It was about me. I couldn't bring myself to face it, not even with Jack. I convinced myself that if I buried it deep enough, it would stay hidden forever. But Lily felt a wave of conflicting emotions. There was anger. Anger that her mother had kept such a crucial part of their past hidden from her. But there was also sympathy and confusion. Her mother's pain was palpable, as though she were carrying the weight of 1,000 secrets, none of which she had ever shared. What do you mean, they kept their eyes on us? Lily asked, her voice shaking now with a mix of fear and curiosity. Emma took a deep breath, her gaze falling to the floor as if she couldn't bear to look her daughter in the eye. After I left them, after I married Jack and we started our family, I thought I was free. I thought they wouldn't come looking for me for us. But they did. There were incidents, little things that didn't make sense at the time. Strange people watching the house, phone calls late at night, things missing from the house. I thought I was imagining things, but now I know they were watching us, waiting for the right moment. Lila's mind raced, her thoughts spiraling into a vortex of fear and disbelief. She thought back to moments in her childhood when things had seemed off. Strange phone calls, the way her parents would sometimes argue late into the night in hushed tones. But she had never questioned it. She had never dared to. But they're gone now, right? Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. They can't hurt us anymore, can they? Emma remained silent for a long time. Lily watched her, hoping for some sign of reassurance, but all she saw was a woman struggling to hold on to her composure. Finally, Emma spoke, her voice soft but filled with a deep, unsettling truth. I thought they were gone, too, she said. But when I saw the letter last week, I knew it wasn't over. They're still out there, Lily. And I'm afraid that one day, they'll come back. Lily felt her chest tighten, her breath catching in her throat. Her mother's words felt like a punch to the stomach. It was one thing to hear about a dark past. It was another to realize that it wasn't truly gone, that the shadows of the Mitchell family's past were still lurking, waiting for the right moment to resurface. Who was it from? Lily asked, her voice barely audible. Emma hesitated for a moment, then reached into the drawer beside her and pulled out a crumpled envelope. It was plain, with no return address, no identifying marks. Just the words, "For Emma Mitchell," written in a careful, almost deliberate hand. She handed it to Lily, who took it cautiously, her fingers trembling. Lily opened the envelope, pulling out a single sheet of paper. As she read the words written there, her heart sank. "We haven't forgotten you, Emma. We never will. You're still one of us. You can't escape your blood. And one day, you'll have to face it." The words were simple, but the weight of them was immense. Lily felt the room spinning around her, as if the ground beneath her was shifting. This was no ordinary letter. It was a threat, a reminder that their family's past was never truly behind them. Emma's voice broke through Lily's thoughts, her tone filled with a sorrow that was almost unbearable. "I thought I could protect you, Lily. But now, I'm afraid I've failed you." Lily looked up from the letter, her mind racing. There was no going back now. The Mitchell family had always been a perfect image in the eyes of others, but that image was a lie. Beneath it was a dark, twisted reality, one that Lily was only beginning to understand. And as she looked at her mother, she realized that the Mitchells' perfect life was about to be shattered forever. "Mom?" Lily said, her voice trembling but filled with a determination she hadn't known she had. "We can't let them win. We need to find out who sent this and why. We need to put an end to this, once and for all." Emma's eyes met Lily's, and for the first time in years, she saw a spark of hope in her daughter's eyes. It wasn't over yet. They still had each other. And together, they would face whatever came next. The days that followed the discovery of the letter were heavy with uncertainty. Lily couldn't shake the feeling that something far more sinister was lurking in the shadows. As much as her mother tried to reassure her that they were safe, Lily knew better. They had been living under the illusion of normalcy, but now the veil had been lifted. The Mitchell family's perfect facade was starting to crumble, revealing the jagged, dangerous truths beneath. Lily couldn't stand the idea of being helpless, of sitting back and waiting for whatever threat her family faced to find them again. She knew they had to act, and soon. But where to start? Who could she trust with the truth of what had been uncovered? Who would believe her, let alone help her? That evening, as Lily sat in her room, trying to make sense of everything, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Ben, her younger brother. He was always the more carefree one, the one who didn't take life too seriously. But tonight, the message was different. There was a sense of urgency to it that immediately caught her attention. "Lily, something's going on. I saw something strange today. Meet me at the park in 20 minutes. Lily's heart skipped a beat. She didn't waste a second. She grabbed her jacket and rushed out the door. As she walked through the quiet suburban streets, her mind raced with possibilities. What had Ben seen? What could he possibly know that she didn't? When she arrived at the park, she saw Ben pacing near the swings. His eyes darted around nervously, and his hands were shoved into the pockets of his hoodie. As soon as he spotted Lily, he hurried over to her, his expression a mix of concern and fear. "Ben, what's going on?" Lily asked, her voice tight with anxiety. "What did you see?" Ben glanced over his shoulder, making sure no one was watching, before pulling her aside into the shadows near a row of trees. "You won't believe it, but I swear I'm not making this up," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I saw a man today, at the edge of the property near the driveway. He was standing there just watching the house. And when I looked out the window, he saw me too. He didn't move, not at first. It was like he was waiting for something, like he knew I was watching him." Lily's stomach churned. Was he a stranger? "Yeah," Ben replied, his voice shaky. He didn't look familiar at all, but he had this look on his face, like he was trying to stay hidden, but not really trying that hard. And then, just as I was about to go out there, he turned and walked off down the street. But he didn't take the usual path. He went around the back of the house. I tried to follow him, but then I lost sight of him. Lily felt a chill crawl up her spine. Her mind raced. Could it be someone connected to her mother's past? Was this the start of something bigger? She couldn't afford to ignore it. Not anymore. "Ben, we need to tell Mom and Dad," Lily said, her voice determined. "This is serious. Whoever that guy is, he's watching us. We need to figure out what he wants and why he's here." Ben shook his head, looking more anxious than ever. I don't know, Lil. I don't want to freak them out. They're already on edge after everything with Mom's past. I don't want to make things worse. Lily clenched her fists. We can't just sit here and do nothing. We need to find out who this guy is and what he's doing. And we need to protect ourselves. All of us. For the next few days, Lily couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every time she walked through the house, she felt a prickle at the back of her neck, like someone was right behind her. She couldn't concentrate at school, and at night, she couldn't sleep. The letter, the strange man Ben had seen, her mother's cryptic warnings. It all weighed on her like a suffocating cloud. One evening, as Lily sat in the kitchen, her thoughts scattered. Emma entered, her expression unreadable. Lily turned to face her, feeling a mix of relief and unease. Her mother had been quieter than usual since their conversation about the past, and Lily could tell that she, too, was on edge. I don't want to keep things from you anymore, Lily, Emma said quietly, her voice heavy with regret. But I need you to understand that this is dangerous. What we're dealing with is far worse than anything I've told you. It's not just about protecting you from the past. It's about keeping us all alive. Lily felt her breath catch in her throat. What do you mean? What's happening? Who's doing this to us? Emma hesitated, her gaze distant. She sat down at the kitchen table, her hands trembling. There's something I didn't tell you before, something that's been haunting me for years. I didn't want you to know, but I see now that I can't hide it anymore. My family wasn't just involved in crime. They were part of something far darker. They were part of an underground syndicate. And it wasn't just about money or power. It was about control. Control over people's lives, their minds, their destinies. They made deals, Lily. They made deals with dangerous people, people who could destroy anyone who stood in their way. Lily's heart pounded in her chest. The words her mother spoke seemed to resonate with a deep, unsettling truth. But there was more, Lily could sense it. What kind of deals? And why didn't you tell Dad? Emma's eyes were filled with an indescribable sadness. I didn't want to involve him. Jack? He's always been the protector, the one who kept us safe. But I never told him the full story. And now it's too late. They've found us, Lily. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Lily felt a wave of nausea wash over her. The man Ben had seen, the letter, her mother's cryptic warnings. It was all coming together. Her family's past wasn't just some distant memory. It was a living, breathing nightmare that had come to collect its debt. We can't let them win, Mom, Lily said, her voice steady despite the fear racing through her veins. We have to take control of this. We need to find out who's behind this, who's pulling the strings, and we need to stop them before they destroy everything we have. Emma looked at her, a flicker of hope in her eyes. You're right, Lily. We can't hide anymore. It's time to fight back. That night, Lily couldn't sleep. Her mind was racing, filled with too many questions and too few answers. She had always thought of her family as ordinary, as normal, but now she saw it for what it truly was, a ticking time bomb, one that had been silently counting down all these years. And now, the bomb was about to explode. The next day, Lily and Ben made a decision. They couldn't wait for their parents to take action. They had to take matters into their own hands. They needed to find the man Ben had seen, track down the people involved in Emma's past, and uncover whatever secrets had been buried so deep that they had nearly suffocated their family. But as they set their plan into motion, they didn't realize just how deep the web went, or how many lives had already been destroyed in the process. The Mitchell family was about to learn that some truths, once uncovered, could never be undone. The fight for survival had begun, and it was far more dangerous than any of them could have imagined. The following weeks unfolded like a string of broken glass. Each step the Mitchell family took only leading them deeper into a world they could never have imagined. The perfect suburban life they had worked so hard to maintain now seemed like a distant memory, a fleeting illusion shattered by the weight of their secrets. Lily and Ben had made a pact. They would uncover the truth about the mysterious man Ben had seen and about the shadowy figures lurking in the corners of their mother's past. They weren't sure where to start, but they knew they couldn't stay idle. Their lives, and the lives of their parents, were hanging in the balance. The first thing Lily did was dive into her mother's past, scoring old family albums, letters, and anything she could find that might hold clues. There were no direct mentions of the underground syndicate Emma had spoken of, but there were oddities, little things that didn't seem to add up. Her mother had kept her own family at arm's length for as long as Lily could remember, but now the reasons were starting to come into focus. Lily found a photograph of Emma with a man Lily didn't recognize. He was older, his features hard and cold, his posture stiff in a way that felt ominous even in a photograph. The man was dressed in dark, formal clothing, but the most disturbing part was the look in his eyes. A predatory gaze that seemed to pierce through the frame. Lily felt a chill run down her spine as she stared at the image. She had to know who he was. He had to be a part of this twisted past her mother had tried to hide. "Mom?" Lily asked cautiously, walking into the living room where Emma was sitting, staring blankly at the television screen. Emma looked up at her, a faint smile playing on her lips, though it didn't reach her eyes. She seemed distracted, lost in her own thoughts. Lily held up the photo. "Who is this?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady despite the growing anxiety in her chest. Emma's smile faltered, and her eyes widened ever so slightly. She didn't take the photograph from Lily's hands. Instead, she turned her gaze away, her lips tightening. "Lily, I don't want you to get involved in this. It's not safe. It's something you shouldn't know about. Please." But Lily was determined. "I need to know, Mom. Who is he? Why is he in the picture with you?" Emma's shoulders slumped, and she sighed deeply, the weight of the years pressing down on her. "His name was Robert Price," Emma said softly, her voice barely a whisper. He was one of the men I ran from. He was the leader of the syndicate I told you about. He was a monster, and I thought I'd escaped him. But now, it seems he's come back." Lily felt a surge of anger mixed with fear. "Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell Dad?" Emma's voice cracked as she looked at her daughter. "I thought I could protect you, Lily. I thought I could keep you safe from all of it. But now I see that I've only been hiding the truth from you." Lily's mind was racing. What does he want? Why is he here? Is he coming after us? Emma shook her head, her face etched with fear. "I don't know, but I think he's come to collect a debt. One that your grandfather owed him. When I left everything behind. I thought I could escape. But now, I know that Robert won't rest until he gets what he wants. And he won't stop until he has it." Ben entered the room just then, having overheard the conversation. His face was pale, his eyes wide with fear. "What's going on? Who's Robert Price? And why is he coming after us?" Lily's heart sank as she looked at her younger brother. "He's part of the syndicate, Ben, the one Mom was involved in. And now, it seems like he's come back to finish what was started." Ben swallowed hard, his hands shaking. "What do we do now?" Lily turned to her mother, who seemed to be shrinking before their eyes, the weight of the past bearing down on her. "Mom, we need to figure out what he wants. We can't wait for him to make the first move." Emma looked at them both, her expression haunted. "We need to find him before he finds us. I don't know how he got here or how he found us. But I've been getting these strange phone calls lately. Silent calls, followed by a message on the answering machine. It's always the same, just a series of clicks and static. But I know it's him." Lily felt a sense of urgency swell within her. "Then we need to track him down. We can't let him control us anymore." The family spent the next few days preparing. They couldn't risk involving the police, not with the connections Robert Price undoubtedly had. Instead, they decided to gather information on their own, relying on Lily's resourcefulness and Ben's intuition. They had to act fast before Robert could make his next move. Lily's search led her to some unsettling discoveries. She learned that Robert Price had been a powerful figure in the underground world for years, his influence spanning across multiple industries. It wasn't just about money or power for him. It was about control, and he had always been the puppet master, pulling the strings of those around him. Emma's involvement in the syndicate had been more than just a passing connection. She had been deeply entangled in the web of lies and corruption that Robert had built. And when Emma had left, she had taken more than just her freedom. She had taken something that Robert couldn't afford to lose. She had taken his trust, his power, and now he was coming for it. Lily spent hours sifting through records, news articles, and old documents that Emma had kept hidden away. She even reached out to people who might have known Robert, trying to piece together the puzzle. But it was clear that they were facing an opponent far more dangerous than they had anticipated. Then, one evening, Lily received a message. It was from an unknown number, and it sent a chill through her body. She clicked it open and found a single line of text. "I know you're looking for me. But be careful, Lily. You're not ready for what you'll find." The message was signed with a single name, Robert Price. Lily's heart raced. She showed it to her mother, who seemed to grow even more distant, her face pale. "He knows, Mom. He's playing with us. He's trying to scare us." Emma nodded grimly. "He's always been a master of manipulation. He knows how to make you doubt yourself, to make you question everything. He'll do anything to get what he wants." Lily clenched her fists. "We can't let him win. We have to stay ahead of him." The next morning, as Lily and Ben were preparing to continue their investigation, they were interrupted by the sound of a loud bang from outside. It was a noise they had heard too many times before. The sound of their front door being kicked open. Before they could react, two masked figures entered their home. They were wearing dark clothing, and their movements were swift, calculated. One of them, the taller of the two, held a gun in his hand, while the other began searching the house, his eyes scanning every corner for something. Or someone. Lily's breath caught in her throat. They had come for them. "We've been watching you," the taller man said, his voice cold. "Now, it's time to pay the price." Lily felt her heart race as she backed away, grabbing Ben's arm. This was it. They were no longer just trying to uncover the truth. They were now in the middle of it. Robert Price had found them, and the Mitchells had nowhere to hide. As the two intruders advanced, Lily could hear her mother's voice, trembling but resolute. "You're not getting away with this. You'll never get what you want." The man with the gun chuckled darkly. We'll see about that." But Lily knew one thing for sure. The Mitchell family's fight for survival had only just begun. The sound of the door crashing open reverberated through the house like a gunshot. Lily's heart skipped a beat as she grabbed Ben's arm and pulled him toward the staircase. The men in black had entered with an air of cold certainty, their every movement deliberate and calculated. They had come for them. There was no question about it. "Stay quiet," Lily whispered urgently, her voice barely audible. She pressed Ben's back against the wall as they crouched in the shadows, listening intently. One of the men shouted something unintelligible, his voice thick with authority. "We're not leaving until we get what we came for." Lily's breath caught in her throat. They hadn't come just to intimidate. They wanted something. But what? "Stay close," Lily hissed, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't afford to think too much about what would happen if they were caught. They had to find a way out of this. Together. Ben nodded, his face pale, but he didn't say anything. He had always been the quieter, more obedient of the two siblings, and now his usual stoic calmness seemed to be overwhelmed by fear. The second intruder, shorter but more agile, began searching the rooms methodically. His footsteps were quick, tapping lightly on the hardwood floor as he scanned each corner, rifling through drawers and knocking things over in his haste. Lily's mind raced. What did they want? Why were they here? Her thoughts flashed back to her mother's warning. Robert Price. The syndicate. Everything Emma had said suddenly seemed much more real, as if they were no longer just words, but a horrifying reality they had to face head-on. Lily, we need to do something. Ben whispered, his voice trembling. They're going to find us. What do we do? Lily looked at her brother, her gaze hardening with determination. They couldn't wait any longer. They had to act now, or they were done for. She grabbed the phone from her pocket and quickly dialed the number she had memorized weeks ago. A number that Emma had insisted she keep hidden. It belonged to someone who could help, someone who had been a part of Emma's life before they moved to Oakridge. Someone who might still owe Emma a favor. The call went straight to voicemail. Lily cursed under her breath, but there was no time to waste. She turned to Ben. Stay here. I'm going to try and get a signal out to someone. Keep an eye on them, and don't make a sound. Ben nodded, his eyes wide, and crouched further into the shadows as Lily slipped out of the corner and crept toward the hallway. She knew she had to be quick. Her phone might not be the only thing they could track. There were cameras in the house, and their every move was being watched. Lily reached the kitchen, where the back door was. It was locked, but not with anything permanent. It was her only chance at getting out of the house unnoticed. She tugged at the handle, but before she could even manage to open it, a voice rang out from behind her. Going somewhere. Lily spun around, her heart crashing into her chest. The taller of the two men stood at the entrance to the kitchen, blocking the door. He was holding a gun now, the barrel pointed casually in her direction. His face was covered by a balaclava, but his eyes, those eyes, were cold and calculating, like a predator watching its prey. Don't move, the man ordered in a low, menacing tone. We don't need any more problems, but if you make this difficult, we will. Lily froze, her breath shallow and quick. Her mind was racing. She needed to think of something, anything. She couldn't let him catch her. Not like this. She glanced around the kitchen for an escape route, but there was nowhere to go. They had her cornered. Just then, the sound of footsteps echoed from the stairs. The second man had found Emma and Ben. "Mom," Lily shouted, but the words were immediately swallowed by the sound of the gun being cocked. "Quiet," the man barked, his voice sharp with command. "You don't want to make me angry." Lily's heart pounded in her chest. She had to stay calm, had to think of a way out. She wasn't sure how much longer she could stall. As if on cue, the second man appeared in the doorway, his eyes narrowing when he saw the situation. "She's not going to make it easy," he muttered. The taller man stepped forward, still aiming the gun at Lily. "No one makes it easy," he said coldly. "No, where's the file?" Lily's eyes widened. "What file? What are you talking about?" The taller man's gaze hardened. "Don't play dumb with me, sweetheart. Your mother knows what we're after. We've been looking for it for years." Lily's mind scrambled. The file. The only file her mother had ever kept locked away. A file that Emma had told her never to touch. She had always assumed it was just papers from her old life. But now it seemed it was more than that. It was the one thing these men wanted, the one thing that tied her mother's past to their present. "Where is it?" the man demanded again, his patience wearing thin. "Your mother knows. She's not stupid. She won't protect you forever." But Lily's thoughts raced. Her mother had warned her. She had always known this day would come, but she had never been prepared for it. Still, Lily wasn't about to give up. Not now, not when they were so close. "Mom," she screamed, hoping against hope that Emma would hear. "Where's the file?" The sound of footsteps once again filled the house, but this time they weren't from the men. This time, it was Emma. She came into the kitchen, her eyes fixed on the intruders. She stood tall, though the fear in her eyes was undeniable. "It's not here," Emma said quietly, her voice steady but filled with an underlying sorrow. "You've come all this way for nothing. Lily turned to her mother in confusion, her mind struggling to process her words. "What do you mean?" Lily asked. Emma's gaze was fixed on the men, her voice thick with regret. "It's already gone. I gave it to someone else, someone I trusted." The taller man's expression darkened, his grip tightening on the gun. "You lied to us. You think we're stupid? We know it's here. We know you kept it hidden." Emma stood her ground, despite the fear written across her face. "I didn't lie. It's gone. I gave it away years ago when I realized the danger it posed. It's not in this house." The men exchanged a brief glance, the tension mounting. It was clear that Emma's defiance had thrown them off, but it didn't break their resolve. The shorter man stepped forward, his voice hard and unyielding. "We're not leaving without it. You'll regret this." Lily looked at her mother, her eyes searching for any sign of weakness, but Emma's face was set in stone. She was done running, done hiding. "You're wrong," Emma said, her voice fierce. "You won't find it. Not now. Not here." Lily watched as her mother took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly but still resolute. She knew something that the men didn't, something they could never take from her. And just as the tension reached its peak, just as the gunman stepped forward to make his move, the front door burst open. A figure stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the dim light of the evening. It was a man, tall and imposing, dressed in black with a calm, measured presence that immediately commanded attention. The taller man faltered, his gun dropping slightly in surprise. "That's far enough," the stranger said, his voice steady, but filled with an unmistakable authority. "I think you've overstayed your welcome." For the first time, the men hesitated. They weren't alone anymore. And suddenly, their carefully calculated plan seemed much more fragile than before. The standoff had begun, and the Mitchell family was no longer fighting alone. The tension in the room was suffocating. The air was thick with uncertainty, and the heavy silence was broken only by the sound of shallow breathing and the rustle of clothing as everyone adjusted to the unexpected interruption. The man who had just stepped into the Mitchell home stood tall, his presence commanding attention. He was no stranger to this world, that much was clear. He was dressed in black tactical gear, his face obscured by a mask, but there was something about the way he carried himself that screamed authority. As he stood in the doorway, the gunmen hesitated, their eyes flicking between him and each other. The taller of the two, the one who had been threatening Lily, raised his gun slightly, but his hand wavered. "Who the hell are you?" he growled, trying to regain control of the situation. The newcomer didn't flinch. "I'm the person you didn't think you'd have to deal with," he said, his voice calm but laced with an edge that made the gunman hesitate. "And I'm the one who's going to make sure you don't leave here in one piece if you keep making threats." The shorter man glanced at his partner, as if weighing their options. The threat in the stranger's voice was unmistakable, and it seemed they were beginning to recognize that the situation had shifted. But they were no rookies. The taller man's grip tightened on his gun, and he took a step forward. "You don't know who you're dealing with," the man snarled, but there was a flicker of doubt in his voice now. "You should leave before we." Before he could finish his sentence, the stranger moved. It was so fast that Lily barely registered it. In an instant, the man had disarmed the taller intruder, knocking the gun out of his hand with an efficient, fluid motion. The gun clattered to the floor, and the man grabbed the would be assailant by the collar, slamming him into the wall with a force that left the air in the room trembling. The shorter man, clearly shaken, backed away, his own weapon raised. But the newcomer was already on him. With the speed of someone who had been trained for moments like this, the stranger expertly kicked the gun out of the man's hand and knocked him to the floor, immobilizing him with a firm hold that left the man gasping for breath. Lily, Ben, and Emma stood frozen, unsure whether to run or to stay. Everything had happened so quickly, too quickly for them to fully process. But the most overwhelming feeling was a sense of relief. The immediate threat had been neutralized. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, they had a moment to breathe. "Mom, who is he?" Lily asked, her voice shaky but full of wonder as she turned to her mother, her eyes wide with disbelief. Emma was staring at the stranger, her face a mixture of shock and recognition. For a moment, it seemed as if she was too stunned to speak. Her eyes narrowed slightly, as though weighing the implications of the man's arrival. This is Alex," she said slowly, her voice almost a whisper. "An old friend, someone I never expected to see again." The Lily and Ben exchanged puzzled looks. "What do you mean, an old friend? How does he know about everything?" Emma stepped closer to them, her eyes still fixed on Alex, but there was a softness in her gaze now, as if some long-buried weight was being lifted from her shoulders. "Alex was someone I met when I was trying to get away from Robert Price and his people. He's the one who helped me disappear. He was the one who helped me get out of their reach. And now, I suppose he's come to help us again." Lily took a step forward, trying to make sense of it all. "But why didn't you tell us about him before? Why didn't you tell Dad?" Emma looked down, her face clouded with guilt. "Because it's complicated, Lily. I didn't want anyone getting involved in my past. Alex's help was always a last resort. But now, I see that I can't protect you by hiding everything. Not anymore." The tension in the room seemed to evaporate as Alex stood tall, his presence almost comforting now. He glanced over at Emma and gave a small nod, as if acknowledging something unspoken between them. "We don't have time to dwell on that now," Alex said, his voice calm but firm. "We need to get out of here before more of them show up." While Lily felt a sudden rush of relief. The strangers who had been terrorizing their home, the ones who had been hunting for her mother's secrets, had been subdued. But the fact that there were more of them, that Robert Price and his syndicate were still out there, weighed heavily on her heart. The threat wasn't overt. They had only just begun to understand how deep the rabbit hole went. "Where do we go?" Ben asked, his voice trembling slightly as he stared at the two intruders still bound on the floor. Alex glanced at them briefly before turning his attention back to Emma. "You should come with me. I know a place where we can lay low. They'll be looking for you, but with the right precautions we can keep you safe." Lily stepped forward, a surge of determination rising within her. "No. We need to find out what's in that file. We can't keep running forever." But Alex's expression softened, but there was a seriousness in his eyes as he looked at Lily. "I understand your desire for answers, but the file, it's a dangerous thing. Trust me, getting caught up in this will only make things worse. Robert Price has a network of people who will stop at nothing to get it back." Emma nodded, her face pale but resolute. "I'm not running from this anymore, Alex. I need to face what I left behind. For Lily, for Ben. We can't keep living in fear." But Alex's eyes flicked between Emma and Lily, sensing the strength in their resolve. After a long pause, he nodded. "Fine. But we do this my way. We get the information we need and then we get out. No more games. We do it smart." Lily met his gaze, her mind made up. "I'm in. I need to know the truth." "We all do." With that, they gathered their things, a sense of urgency now propelling them forward. The house, once a place of comfort, now felt like a trap. The walls seemed to close in as they made their way out, leaving behind the remnants of the confrontation. The two men lay unconscious on the floor, but Lily knew this wasn't over. It was only the beginning. The drive was long, silent, and tense. Alex led the way, his vehicle a nondescript van that blended into the landscape as they made their way to a safe house, far from the prying eyes of the syndicate. Emma sat in the front seat, her face set in determination, while Lily and Ben sat in the back, their minds spinning with questions. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow across the landscape, Lily looked out of the window. The world outside seemed so normal, so unchanged. But inside their little group, everything had shifted. Her mother's past was no longer a distant memory. It was a living, breathing monster, stalking them with every step they took. But they had come this far. They weren't going to stop now. They were a family bound by blood, by secrets, and by the shared goal of survival. And no matter what came next, they would face it together. When they finally arrived at the safe house, the weight of the journey ahead pressed heavily on their shoulders. They would uncover the truth, the full truth. And when they did, nothing would ever be the same again. But for the first time in a long while, Lily felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years: hope. The fight was far from over, but they were no longer just running. They were going to take the fight to Robert Price and the syndicate. The ties that bound them were stronger than anything they had ever faced. And this time, they would not be broken. Thanks for watching the video. Subscribe and like the video.